Hi, everyone. I'm Selina from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and we're here with Lee Hollis. He is actually a cozy mystery writer. And I'm going to let him tell you a little story about his his names and the beginnings of how he started writing.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, Lee Hollis is actually a pen name. My real name is Rick Kopp. I was a writer in Hollywood for many years as a screenwriter and TV writer. But when I decided to do the first cozy mystery series, the Haley Powell Food and Cocktails Mysteries, was going to do the one with my sister because we were going to include recipes and columns, and I don't cook, so I needed I needed someone who could actually cook and provide the recipes for the readers. And so we teamed up to do the series. I wrote the mysteries and she wrote the columns and recipes. And so we decided to use our middle names, Lee and Hollis. And her middle name is Lee, mine's Hollis, so we became Lee Hollis. And now it's become a little bit of a franchise since I've gone on to do 2 other series. But just so I won't confuse readers, I keep the Lee Hollis name. So that's how it all came about.
That's great. So how did you actually start writing the cozy mysteries?
Well, years ago, for Kensington Publishing, I wrote a series of books under my own name. Actually, one's behind me, I think, in the the corner of the cover. And so when so I'd already had an editor at Kensington, and he came to me, and I was just talking about my sister. He'd met her at a book awards ceremony, and he said, "Oh, how's she doing?" I said, "Oh, she's writing a column about food in our local paper in Bar Harbor, Maine." And he's like, "That's a series." So, basically, I just started writing about my sister, adding cozy murder mysteries, and that's how the first series started to evolve, and how I got into the whole cozy genre, which I didn't really know a lot about. I watched Murder, She Wrote, and I, but other than that, I didn't know there was a whole world, and it's been quite a journey, and it's been a lot of fun meeting the cozy readers. They've been terrific, and so very supportive.
So what can readers expect from your latest book?
The next book out is called Poppy Harmon and the Pillow Talk Killer. And it is a series I do that's set in Palm Springs. And Poppy is a retired actress whose husband dies and leaves her with crushing debt. So the role she played on television in the 1980s was as a secretary to a detective. And so she feels that that's enough experience to open her own detective agency with her 2 friends, Violet and Iris. So they call it the Desert Flowers Detective Agency. And they're each named after a flower. It's Poppy, Iris, and Violet. So it's kind of the Golden Girls, which is a show I actually worked on when I was 24 years old. I was a writer on the Golden Girls. So it was kind of a natural. And then it turns out that nobody really wants to hire, women in their 60s. They all want young people. It's all about the age. And so in order to drum up some business, they hire an out-of-work actor named Matt Flowers, and he becomes the face of the agency, like that old Remington Steele show. And but yet it's about empowerment, because the women do all the work. And he's just kind of a bumbling fool who kind of follows around and tries to take all the credit. And
definitely sounds like Remington Steele, doesn't it?
Yeah. So except instead of the gender, it's more about ageism. And so and the readers have really responded, because it's a topic that I think a lot of people feel passionately about, and this will be the 3rd book in the series, and this one's a little deeper than the other ones, because the case that they take on is reminiscent of something that went on in the 1980s when Poppy was an actress. So I have a lot of flashbacks, and it's kind of a different kind of storytelling, which I got to do with this book, and I was really excited about it, and I'm excited for people to read it. I hope they read it. So.
Sounds like a lot of fun. It really does. So what do you think draws readers to these kinds of books?
I think there's I love cozy mysteries. I think are like comfort food. Agatha Christie was the master, of course. There's nothing. People who like these kind of murder mysteries. There are expectations involved in terms of nothing gets too dark or bloody or gore. It's more of a fun romp in a way, and a puzzle that people can try to figure out. My favorite part of writing the books are coming up with the puzzle and trying to keep readers guessing until the end. And there's nothing I love more than an Amazon review or a review or hearing from readers that they didn't guess the killer until the very end. That's when I feel like I've done my job.
Great. So what was the inspiration for the latest book, and what were the steps that you took to bring it from initial inspiration to a finished product?
Well, it was funny because I was already writing with my sister the Haley Powell murder mysteries. Mm-hmm. And concurrently, I wrote and produced a web series that I actually appeared in. And on the show, I had there was an episode, a Mother's Day special, where we had to hire people for our mothers, actresses to play our mothers. And I met this actress named Francine, who had been very active in the 70s and 80s, and she was now retired. And I just loved her. And she and I connected on such a level. And I thought, what a great character. And she had all these stories about her days in Hollywood and lots of scandals, and she knew all the dirt about all the stars. And I thought that would be a great way in. And I was looking to set something in Palm Springs where I live. So that was the genesis of it. And this actress, as I got friendly with her, and then I met a couple of older ladies out here who I'd take out to dinner, and they became Violet and Iris. So I was very inspired by real people in my life, and I put them together as a team of detectives, which it seems like all I do, even in television work, it's always about, and they solve crimes,
And this third Poppy Harmon book comes out in February, doesn't it? February 23rd.
Yeah, the third one. The first one is already, Poppy Harmon Investigates, is out in paperback, and then the second one, Poppy Harmon and the Hung Jury, comes out in paperback next Tuesday, February 23rd. So go to Annie's Bookstop and order it.
Thank you. Yes, that's true. I mean, we do have all your books, and we can order any books that you want. If you want to order any of your books, we just send an email to orders@anniesbooksworcester.com. So that would be great.
Perfect.
So what kind of research went into writing your books and writing any of your books? And what's your favorite research story? And what cool facts and findings didn't make it into the books and you wanted, but you love discovering?
Well, there's an old adage, old lesson. First thing I ever learned as a writer was write what you know. So every series I do comes from a place that, of lived experience. I mean, I'm not a 62-year-old retired actress. Obviously, people can tell that, and I'm also not my sister, who lives in a small town, a single mother, raising two kids like a Haley Powell. And then the third series is two women, one wife of a U.S. senator and one is a private detective, and they knew each other in high school in the Maya and Sandra mysteries. None of those are me, but I set them in locations. I set them in a world of people that I do know about. So the research is basically lived experience with me. Obviously, when it comes to murder, I have to research various poisons.
I would hope so.
and police work, but my greatest inspiration and my greatest stories of writing the books is the traveling. I will travel home to Maine where the books are set. I go out and about in Palm Springs and for instance, Poppy Harmon and the Hung Jury was born out of me serving jury duty here in Palm Springs. And I, for some inexplicable reason, became the jury foreman, and it was this big case. And I thought, I took those experiences, and that was probably the most interesting research I'd ever done, because I knew the day I started, this is going to be a book. This is going to have to be a book. And out of that came Poppy was on a jury of an assault trial, and which is exactly what mine was. And but in her case, she was the only female on an all-male jury. So, and she was and Poppy is very charming and lovely, and so I decided the murder would come out of one of the jurors being murdered, and I did develop some of the characters based on the people I met on my own jury. and so, but it all worked out great, and then like I had the ending set up on the tram here in Palm Springs. We have a big tram up into the mountains, and so I just try to find interesting things that I've visited and I've been to in order to really inspire the storytelling.
I know I've heard that that actually there is a story in everything. So you can walk down the street and find a story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the frustrating thing for me is I live to travel. That's all I live to do. You know, I work and write to so I can travel. And all of my series are set in either Maine or Palm Springs, two places where I live. You know, so so I'm like, when can I, you know, set the mystery in Turkey, Istanbul? I was there 2 years ago. I wanted, you know.
That's your next series.
Yeah, so I need a series that with an international traveler. So
so that's your next series, right?
That's gotta be the next series. Yeah, but the cozy audience really loves the Maine settings. They really love these small town settings. It's kind of almost part of the you know, the rules of writing a cozy mystery.
Okay, and what was your biggest challenge in writing and putting out the Poppy Harmon,
The new Poppy.
the new Poppy book?
Probably the biggest challenge was writing, like a big chunk of the book takes place in the 1980s because the murder victim, how the murder is committed evokes a memory in Poppy from a killer that she had encountered in the 1980s. So going back and balancing those flashbacks without taking the reader outside of the story that's happening in the present, that was a real challenge. And also putting your mind back in 1985, which of course I was in college at the time, but remember that period so clearly. And the challenge and the fun was not, you know, there were no cell phones. There were you have to go back and you put yourself in that year with all the pop culture and current events and things like that, and not slip up and not say something current, you know, you know, to make sure that they are of the time that they are in. That was probably the biggest challenge. So
how did you overcome that?
Well, I fact checked everything, you know, every like I was talking about Linda Evans and Rock Hudson on the set of Dynasty, you know, and you know, they were like, because they were all in Hollywood, so they were all gossiping about what was going on. So I had to make sure those things actually did occur. So I'd go back and I'd look at, like, the internet's great. You just look up 1985 and you can check and make sure you're being accurate. But it was very important to be very accurate, not to, I don't want a reader to say that didn't happen until 1986, you know, and they'll catch you.
So that's the good research. So what character did you love or hate the most when you're writing?
I in the Haley Powell series, I love writing my sister because I feel like I'm hanging out with her. You know, like the Haley Powell is my sister, and so she lives in North Carolina, so I don't see her. I don't get to see her much, especially now. Lately, I haven't been able to see her except on the phone, talk on the phone. And so when I'm writing a Haley Powell mystery, it's like hanging out with my sister, who I've always gotten along with. In the Poppy series, the character of Iris, Iris Becker, and she's based on a dear friend of mine who lived in Palm Springs named Brigitte, and Brigitte moved back to Germany. And so I miss her desperately. So, and Violet was a friend of Brigitte's, and I don't see her. She passed away. So when I write those characters, it's like I'm again socializing with those women again, and which I probably won't until I can get back to Germany, at least to see one of them. And it's joyous for me. It's joyful. It's a joyful time to just be writing these characters and feeling like I'm in the room with these women who were meant so much to me.
So what else can we expect from you in the near future?
Well, hopefully, a lot more books. Let's fingers crossed. Well, we have several releases coming out this year. We've got the Poppy Harmon and the Pillow Talk Killer. We have the next Haley Powell, the Death of an Italian Chef, is coming out in late June. We do these anthologies with Barbara Ross and Leslie Meyer. We've done about 5 of them. They're like holiday anthologies. And our next one is Halloween Party Murder. And we each do a novella, and that's going to be out in August, late August. And then I've signed to do 2 more. We're working on the next Haley Powell now called Death of an Ice Cream Scooper. So there'll be a lot of ice cream recipes. And then I've also signed with Kensington to do 2 more Maya and Sandra's. The Maya and Sandra series started out as a Barnes & Noble exclusive, but now they're being released everywhere. So Murder at the PTA is now, you can order it from Annie's Bookstop in Worcester.
Thank you.
And the second one will be it will be released wide, Murder at the Bake Sale in December. And I've signed on for 2 more, which I think are going to be Murder on the Class Trip and Murder at the Class Reunion. So
Wow. Great. Wow, you're keeping yourself very busy.
That's what happens when you can't leave the house really that much.
Yep. I have some questions now about being a writer. What's your favorite part of being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process? And what do you think has been your greatest lesson in the journey so far?
Okay, the first part is the most fun I have when I'm writing. Is that what basically?
What's your favorite part of being a writer?
Favorite part, yes. My favorite part is the plotting. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I love to try to come up with a story with twists and turns and keep it different. I mean, we've already done about 20 cozy mysteries in all the series, but trying to find that moment that you haven't done before, that or finding a new twist on something that you're like at the aha moment. I love those, and normally they never come when I'm sitting in front of the computer. I'm either hiking in the trails up behind my house, or I'm eating or watching a movie. That they come when you least expect it, and then the excitement from that epiphany is always my favorite part of writing the book. I forgot your second part of the question.
On the whole writing and publishing process, what's your favorite part of that?
Oh, I love to go to this, walk into the store and see the books. And when I walk in and I find it, and I the big chains always have them, but I love to go into a small bookstore, independent bookstore. Those are my favorite bookstores, and just to see, oh my gosh, they have us, they have this, or I just love that moment. I love that moment, and they always say, well, you should go tell the store manager, and they'll have you sign the books, but I never want to say, this is mine. It makes me feel weird, so I don't.
You should. Absolutely. We'd love to have you come in and sign the books. I think it's great. What do you consider the most challenging part of the writing process, and how do you overcome that?
It's so funny because my initial thing would be the actual writing, but by the time I get to actually writing the book, it's almost like everything's been worked out in my mind. I come out of television, and in television, it was all about outlines. You had to have an outline for everything because there was so many cooks at the stove who had to give their opinion. Here I have one guy in New York, and he's great. But the writing process is pretty easy. What I find the most difficult is right before the book is published, they send you the final uncorrected proofs, and you have to read the book, the entire book that you've written, and find any last mistakes. And I find that daunting because I know the book so well. I tend to skim and I miss things. And so the most frustrating part is when a mistake gets by and then a reader will write you or something is wrong. And I completely blame myself because I had the last look at it, before it went to the press. And so that's the frustrating part when I miss stuff like that.
That would be very frustrating. So what's been your favorite adventure during your entire writing career?
My favorite writing, well, it wouldn't, I mean, all encompassing in books or television, everything. Well, my favorite, again, it always involves travel. So it's like, I got flown to Australia when I wrote a web series like 6 years ago, And so I got to see a part of the world at least Melbourne, I'd never been to. So I got to see, whenever I get to see something and experience something, I went to NYU in New York City, but I hadn't been back, and I got flown there for 3 weeks to work on a movie, a Howard Stern movie of all things. And I got put up in this really nice hotel. So it was all this like, oh my God, this is how the other half lives. So anything like remotely like that, I would say would be the most fun part, of adventures.
Okay, and what's the greatest lesson you've learned in your writing career?
Outline, always outline. I give it up to writers who just have a thought in their head and then sit down and start writing. I've never been that kind of writer. I never could be, and I think because it was my early training, I did a lot of sitcoms and TV shows like The Golden Girls and Wings and the Brady Bunch movie, and I did all these things where outlines were key. And I know I sound like a broken record, but that is the biggest lesson I've ever learned, because when you outline, you know where you're going. At least in my case, it never fails to get, to make sense and get to the end.
I know a lot of writers just kind of write by the seat of their pants,
Yeah, and I admire them. I think they're gods, but it's not me. I could never do
it. So what piece of advice would you want to share with other writers?
First of all, I think if you've got something to say, and you are passionate about something, write it, because you never know. I have met so many people that they say, oh, I want to write something, I want to do something, but then they never get around to it, or but I believe, and there's an audience. If you're writing something that you believe in, there is an audience out there that can find you, if you get it out to the right places. And that would, and also write what because writing is so much about your experiences, and it reaches a deeper level when you're writing about something that you're intimately involved with, or a lot about, or are passionate about. I don't mean to write about your life. I mean, like, people are very passionate about fantasy and the Game of Thrones type of, and that's just as, people know a lot about that, so they should write about it. I'm not saying you have to write exactly what your lived experience is.
Mm-hmm. And are there any groups or clubs or organizations that you'd recommend to other writers that have helped you in your career?
I would say one of the biggest things that has helped me is I became part of a writers group of fellow writers when I was living in Los Angeles. And that was invaluable to me, because if you can find a group of people that you trust and you respect, and you get together once a week, every couple of weeks, once a month, that is because when I joined a writers group, I used to have a lot of writing partners. And so you were able to bounce things off of them. And by the time I joined this group, I was writing on my own. And it just was an invaluable tool to have people respond. Now, you may not agree with what they say, but take everything in and then go back and look at your work with the fresh eyes. And I just think that's the most valuable tool you can have as a writer is feedback.
Great. And I'm going to ask you questions more about you as a person. What's the one thing that most people don't realize about you?
It's so funny because people always think that my whole career has been cozy mysteries. And so I keep two websites, actually. I keep the Lee Hollis website, which is all the Lee Hollis books, but I also have my own website because people don't know that, I started as a sitcom writer and then wrote movies, and I did a lot of animation. Like I was doing a book event with Barbara Ross, and she was like, my kids loved your Scooby-Doo movie, like, so it's like people are shocked to discover, oh, he did something before this. And then And then also I've acted occasionally, and people don't ever know that who read our Lee Hollis books. And it worked out because I did this show, I created it, and I was in it, and it was a little raunchy. It wasn't G-rated at all. So it's like, it's good that my cozy readers don't know that. It's like,
well, you're telling them now.
yeah, they're gonna know now. But just keep it separate, and it's worked. It works. It's like, know your audience. Know your audience.
What question do you wish interviewers would ask you, and what would your answer be?
It would be, would you come to our store for an in-person event? And my answer would be yes, because I love I miss them so much, and that would probably be it. The answer would be yes.
Would you come to Annie's for an in-store event after COVID is over?
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. What is or are your passions when you're not writing, and how do you make time for your non-writing hobbies?
Well, I think I've probably beaten this dead horse, but travel. That is my passion. If I don't have a trip planned somewhere, just because I love the experience of being in new places, and I find it very inspiring. Like, constantly you open your mind up to new ideas, and what's been hard during this period is because I can't travel. I've worried that the writing would suffer. That I don't have that outlet. But I feel like it's been okay, and I'm a basically optimistic person anyway, so I'm constantly planning and looking forward to when this is all over to be able to go out and travel again. But I think that's definitely it, experiencing new places.
And what does your writing space look like? And
let's look around. This is my home office. It's funny though, like I do all my plotting and outlining and kind of writing in my office here in my home. But when it's time to sit down and write a chapter, I usually go downstairs and stretch out on the couch and just pound away on my laptop. And because I got to be very comfortable in order to write a chapter, And so it kind of, I'm not the type that goes to Starbucks, or sits in a coffee shop. It's too distracting. I have to have kind of quiet, Yeah,
that was my next question is when you're writing, do you prefer silence or music or whatever? So you prefer silence. Yeah.
I've tried it with music, and then I just don't even, it blocks out. I don't even hear it. So yeah, I pretty have quiet. And I live alone, so it's perfect,
So what do you need to have around you while you're writing or editing?
Coffee. Coffee. And just a clear mind. Yeah. I don't really need much. But I'm actually a writer that needs rewards. So it's like, I always say to myself, if you write this chapter, then you can go to a matinee at the movies later today. I'm such a planner. People make fun of me. I have color-coded calendars. I mean, you would think, a creative writer, I'm so anal retentive when it comes to like scheduling. And I literally schedule my writing sessions, like how many chapters, for a month ahead. So I know exactly like, oh, it's Tuesday the 15th. I need to write chapter 8, And so I plan it out. I'm a big planner.
So my question, since you showed me the coffee, was do you have any favorite foods or drinks that you have to have in the vicinity, and that must be there while you're writing or editing a piece of work?
Yeah, mostly coffee. I don't really eat anything when I'm writing. I mean, I eat 99% of the other time, but but not when I'm writing. No. It's so funny because I always used to go to Starbucks in the morning, and I just read the headlines and things. I don't like to work at Starbucks. I like to hang out and chat with the baristas, and then I come home and work. And during the pandemic, of course, you can't go to sit in Starbucks. So I just go through the drive-thru and drive around. I drive the same route, like I have a commute, an imaginary commute that I really don't, to just do that process, where I usually just clear the mind and drink coffee. Now I just drive around. So
That's all you can do, really.
that's all you can do.
Right. And so writers often have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions to help them or hinder them
Right.
while they're writing. And do you have any of those?
I wish I did. I used to have a dog and a cat. I was so traumatized when they left me that I've never been able to get another one. And also because of my travel schedule, now would be a great time to actually foster a dog. Should think about that. But my fear is I would be a forever parent, like immediately or whatever they're called. I love both dogs and cats. I grew up with cats. I had a dog, but not currently. I have a neighbor who has 2 little cute dogs that I always play with, but not in my own home. So
Yeah, you travel too much, or you did. Yeah.
The idea of putting them into a doggy hotel or one of those, I just go, oh God.
Yeah, that's good though. It's really good that you don't like to put them in hotels.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. How important has the New England setting been in your books? And I obviously know they have.
Yeah, vitally
Yeah.
important. It's just because I've lived in California since 1988, but I still have a very strong connection to my home in New England, and even when I go home and have a couple glasses of wine, the Maine accent comes back a little bit, and it's a small sound, and but it's that old cliche, you can take the boy out of New England, but you can't take New England out of the boy. And that's how I feel. I will always be a New Englander until the day I die, even though I live in Palm Springs, and I know this because of the excitement and joy I get going back, and when I land in Portland, I land in that Portland, Maine airport, and I'm just giddy. I'm giddy. I'm like, I'm home. It happens every single time. It never gets old.
Yeah. Okay, and I have just 2 more questions for you. Where can people find your work aside from Annie's
books? You can find them anywhere books are sold, any website. I'm not going to name names, the big ones, but and your local. You can order them through your local bookstore. They're all available. All the Haley Powells are available on digital and paperback, and then same with the other series, the and also audio. There's most of the series are available on audio, so yeah, that's where you can find our books. Just type in Lee Hollis or the title of the book that you're interested in, and it'll tell you where to find them. If you're not going to go through Annie's, which you should.
Now, do you have any say in the audiobooks?
No. It's funny because there've been several actresses who have done the Haley Powells, and some I've liked better than others. But I have to say, the one actress who's doing the Maya and Sandra mysteries, the Murder at the PTA, which is available now, I love her. She's terrific, and she makes, because there's 2 characters in that one. I actually go alternate chapters between Maya and Sandra, different points of view, which is really fun to do, since the other series are all from one point of view. And she makes it effortless that she's, when she's doing Sandra, when she's doing Maya, and then all the supporting characters. And I just love her. I just think she's great. So I hope she does all the, subsequent books.
Oh, wow.
But I don't really have much of a say at all.
Oh, okay.
The only thing I have a say in, and it's not even a final say, are the covers. I offer my ideas, and a lot of times they'll go with them, and sometimes they won't. But
are these for the books, and for the audios, or
no, just for the books? Yeah, the audio are different. Yeah, it's funny how they're different. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And the last question is, how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Awesomeness. Well, you can follow Lee Hollis on Facebook. Instagram, Twitter, all of those at Lee Hollis Books. And then you can also visit our website, leehollismysteries.com, and that will give you all the information you need in terms of all the books available and links to buy them and all of that. And then we keep up, and although we're little slackers when it comes to the blog, but we try to keep all that up. And so yeah, leehollismysteries.com. That's where I'm very proud. During the pandemic, my big project is I built 2 websites, one for me and one for Lee Hollis. And I just felt that was I know nothing about computers. It was such an accomplishment. I was so proud.
That is amazing. It takes a lot to build a website.
Yeah, it was crazy. But I do the Wix, and it actually made it pretty simple. So
wow. That's great. Well, thank you so much for answering all of our questions. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you at Annie's Bookstop of Worcester when you come in the area.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, and we will be seeing you. Okay. Bye.